wanted to do was create a place that we hadn't seen before, so that when people turned on the TV and started watching the show, they were transported to somewhere else.
You can't actually pinpoint a time or a place for any of these worlds. There are elements that are recognizable, there are characters that are recognizable, but they all come together in a truly fascinating and unique manner.
We were just trying to create a world that is incredibly gritty and real, that you completely believe it, but you don't actually know quite where it was.
It's a place, like all places, that shape the people who live there.
When I first started, sort of decided to just research across the board. We just sort of immersed ourselves in museums and books and paintings and sort of Persian and Inuit and Mongol, Japanese, everything.
It's really trying to take all these different cultural influences and use them to combine something fresh and something different than we've seen before.
Is this your first time in the North, Your Grace?
Yes. Lovely country.
The North became actually the most English medieval look. It's much blacker and darker.
It's a cold place. It's a place where it's probably too cold for farming. It's very beautiful, harsh, rugged terrain like the northern parts of Scotland.
The Night Watch, when we join it, is in decline and has been for some time. Everything that they wear there, it'll be mostly padding, fur, not really metal armor, because obviously you can't wear that in the cold. It's impractical. But it's not a uniform because they're not funded enough to do that anymore. But as long as it's black, it's enough for them to wear.
My costumes don't really change that much because essentially the Night's Watch wear what they arrive in, but anything that they arrive in is dyed black.
And they sort of live, eat, sleep in the same costume, so it just has to almost smell.
Pip was caught stealing a wheel of cheese his little sister hadn't eaten in 3 days. He was given a choice, his right hand or the wall.
Pip always looks cold. He's got very thin clothing. He wasn't planning on coming to the wall. Wealthier people will bring clothes with them that are probably more suitable. The others actually often arrive in a thin jacket. So that's all they have. Jon Snow is planning, is really excited about it and has dressed, as warm as, because he has an understanding of where he's going.
My costumes, they're brilliantly made and brilliantly designed, and especially the cloaks make you feel very weighty and powerful.
They hate me because I'm better than they are.
It's a lucky thing none of them were trained by master-at-arms like your Sir Roderick. I don't imagine any of them have ever held a real sword before they came here.
In Winterfell, Starks are very blues and greys and browns, quite murky colours. I wanted warm blues because there's a warmth within their family relationship.
Hey.
Ned Stark has an elegance to him, but he's incredibly practical. I don't want him to look like he ever thinks about what he's wearing.
What he wears, says something about who he is, so he's not prepared to be flouncing about like the others in gowns and silks and stuff like that.
And again, similar sort of tones and very underplayed, quite simple clothing. Caitlin doesn't think particularly about what she wears. She wears what she's always worn. It's a traditional way, and that's her look.
I'm supposed to marry Prince Joffrey. I love him, and I'm meant to be his queen and have his babies.
7 house.
The two girls, they start off sort of here. It was quite nice putting them initially in very similar costumes. You had these sort of tied, knotted tops, and of course Sansa's are all knotted quite nicely with little embroidered bits on the end and all very nice. And Arya's are just all messy and unknotted and pulled apart, and she takes the sleeves off.
Arya!
What are you doing here? Go away.
It's quite nice to have the two of them very similar and to sort of split apart so far away from each other. You go south, obviously, looking across to King's Landing. They're near the sea, they can trade, they have silks, they have colours. We've decided, really, through the buildings, through the architecture, and through the climate, to make it much more Persian, I guess, in feel. King Robert, although he's living in King's Landing, I wanted to make it that actually at least he and Ned weren't so far apart.
He'd rather be in the boiled leather armour, getting his hands dirty with the guys. That's where he's most comfortable.
So that he's slightly grander and the fabrics are slightly better. But again, it's not going to be lots of sort of pomp and ceremony about him. I don't think that's what he's about. He's a soldier that's become a king. He's a drunk, he's a quite a pathetic figure, really.
Let's go watch him ride. At least I can smell someone else's blood.
Robert.
What? Oh. An inspiring sight.
He's the antipathy of what Cersei wants.
I've been sitting here for days! Start the damn joust before I piss myself.
Cersei is more about fashion and styling. She tends to wear very soft wrapped silks, which are embroidered. It's like a kimono style, but with a slightly medieval cut. And she has a lot of metal belts, because I quite like the idea that she's armoured in a sense.
As your brother, I feel it's my duty to warn you. You worry too much.
And you never worry about anything.
Well, Lannisters don't act like fools.
Jaime Lannister, underneath his Kingsguard armour, he always wears a leather coat which is asymmetric. And then we have the scaled armour on top.
That's the thing about armor like this. To imagine that people would actually fight in this is beyond me. I mean, it's not that comfortable, but it looks fantastic.
And then when we go across the sea, it becomes even hotter. And again, give it a different silhouette, a different colour. Dothraki, of course, are very tribal. Because it is a fantasy and but we want it rooted in reality, it was trying to glean different looks from different races and to create a new look. So it isn't American Indian, it isn't sort of African native. Khal Drogo, he's very practical, leather trousers, very basic, very simple, lots of lacing on.
He lives in these leather pants and they're fantastic. I love them.
It's a gift. I had it made for you.
Dothraki rags. You're going to dress me now?
Please.
Viserys, there's a sort of link to King's Landing. I mean, he remembers, he's older, he remembers the styles that were worn then. The cut is actually quite similar, very sort of clean lined with very much a dragon emblem and ready to go back and claim his throne. Daenerys starts as this very innocent, beautiful young girl, and I just wanted a real elegance of cut and a simplicity. Certainly not medieval, it's almost slightly Grecian, but it's her own particular style. I think it's from once she takes the initiative with Drogo, she then becomes Dothraki.
At-Jaka.
At-Jahakar.
Ath-Jahaka.
At-Jahakar.
Ath-Jahakar.
Yes, Khaleesi.
And by the time we finish with her, she's a warrior, really.
It's incredible. It's just you have those times where you're like, no acting required. I'm just living this moment.
The whole idea of this, I think from the start, was not to make it like a costume drama. It's like it's not velvet dresses and pretty things all the time. When you watch it, you can really believe you could be there. These are real people with foibles and they sweat and they love, obviously, and it's not doctored and it's not sanitized.